Good morning. It's Jopin Seva, gardener from dharmadiner.com, and you're joining us for Sunday brunch at the Dharma Diner. And today we're talking about what is divine will. I've been reading Paramahansa Yogananda's readings lately. We read a lot of diverse readings, and so this is Paramahansa Yogananda. And for some reason, I feel like he's just so nailing it with a lot of terms and concepts that people that like just aren't really tangible and solid, like talking about what is the divine will. And so I thought I would read this today. My husband and I usually have coffee talk in the morning where we get our coffee and then we'll just kind of talk about the day, and we have these profound conversations. And that's why we decided to do Sunday brunch at the Dharma Diner, because it's awesome.
Whether they're profound or not, it's a matter of interpretation. And you can see that we still have our tree up.
Hey, but that's okay.
Yeah.
What's cool about Paramahansa Yogananda is he was so into Jesus. Like, he really brought the teachings of Jesus. He talked about the teachings of Jesus through within the Indian culture, or I'm not saying it really well, but if you go to his center in San Diego, I mean, it's beautiful. He just has so many. He totally talks about the Bible and Jesus' teachings. It makes them come alive. Like, no, they're already alive. I'm not saying it right, but anyway, he was the first Indian.
Makes it so people can relate to it.
Yeah, he was the first person to kind of like bring it into the yogic culture. Like, it stayed kind of Western for some reason, or no?
Go ahead. I don't know.
Okay, anyway, ignore all that. So I'm going to talk about divine will. So he's talking about the law of success. And I recently just finished a 40-day miracles, and this is such a great perspective, like, what is a miracle? But he says, divine will has no boundaries. It works through laws known and unknown, natural and seemingly miraculous. It can change the course of destiny, wake the dead, cast mountains into the sea, and create new solar systems. So he says, man, as an image of God, possesses within him that all-encompassing power of will. So the divine will. So we have that will within us to discover through right meditation. How to be in harmony with the divine will is man's highest obligation. I was like, oh my God, I love that.
And some of this, I don't know if, for me, a lot of this is very slow to interpret. And, you can call me slow. That's fine. I do. But I like to really, like, when I read some of this stuff, it doesn't just click for me. So I have to really kind of think about it and see if it feels right after I read it.
Well, I have to reread things a lot. Like, I like that it says divine will has no boundaries. There's no boundaries. And you see that in a lot of holy scriptures. The Siddhi Guru Granth talks about, I mean, this power, this force of love and light, nobody really knows the limits of it. Nobody. So it's like divine will has no boundaries. It works through laws known. Like, yes, we know some laws, like we know the law of gravity. We know the law of gestation, like it takes time, like for a seed to grow. We know the law of, we know laws. There's like 20 universal laws that are, I can post them down below actually, that are known. But he's saying there's laws of known and unknown. There's so many unknown to us. Natural. There are natural laws, and some that are seemingly miraculous, which is like, yeah. It can change the course of destiny. Dead can come to life, like when Jesus came back to life, and other great saints have come back to life. Cast mountains into the sea and create new solar systems. So I think what I was most fascinated with is this is the same. He's talking about the divine will, but this is the divine. Lately, I've been asking myself, what is enlightenment? Like, what is enlightenment? Why are we striving for enlightenment? And this kind of put a new perspective on it for me, that it's that divine will. It's that power inside of ourselves that's connected to the greatest power. And then all these yogas and meditations and prayers is about like what, waking it up, stimulating it from the Kundalini core of the spine.
Yeah.
You know, it's, and then anyway, so
there's the connecting, but then there's the awareness and the understanding too. I mean, a lot of people want something they can connect to, that they relate to, and they understand it. And our dog is right next to us, so you'll hear her, you know, doing whatever right now. She's drinking. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But what do you, I don't understand what you're saying.
You don't understand that when you're wanting to connect with something, that you also want to understand what you're connecting to. So I think it's just consciousness. It's about being conscious and aware to the connection that you are seeking. So if you're wanting to be, I mean, historically, man has always wanted to relate to something greater than him or herself, right?
Right.
And that would be God or this, you know, the greater power.
But do you think, so that's like interesting. So people would want it to relate to God or greater power, but without the Eastern culture, that power was always outside of themselves.
Don't tell that to a Native American. Native Americans would disagree with that 100%. And so it's so many of the South American cultures.
Well, yeah,
maybe Western philosophy.
Well, that's well, like I was thinking about, like I was actually thinking of like Victorian times, like, you know, the Catholic religion, and people, like, it was really evil. They considered it evil, and people were witches if you thought if you thought that God was inside of yourself. That was horrendous. So everything really was outside of themselves, right? But I love what you're saying, the Native Americans, and you're right.
There are many indigenous cultures where
kind of off screen.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't really want to be on the screen, you guys, but I'm here. So there are many indigenous cultures, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but I watch enough dish television to know that that they talk about the connectivity of nature and the oneness of nature, and that all beings are connected. And a lot of the institutional organizations that are out there, there is a semblance of not going outside of that box, because it's a little dangerous outside of that box. It's not necessarily dangerous outside of the box. In fact, it can be freeing. It's just a matter of being smart with what your day-to-day activities are and your habits. So I think that one thing that yoga does is, and I'm not a huge yogi, everybody. I'm a guy who really is resistant to doing yoga for, you know, it takes a lot of time and effort, and it's not necessarily always comfortable, but it's something that helps us to expand and to become more capable. It's a tool, and I'm grateful because of the multitudes of different angles of stress that come in life. I found that without the meditation, without some form of yoga, without some form of physical exercise, without some sort of creative outlet, that it's too much. And you're going to be your best, because you start getting bogged down. So philosophically, if you start to look at some of these concepts, and many of these concepts are also in the Bible, you are going to start thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, he was saying, so we're talking about the divine will, and he said, Jesus said, thy will be done. When man, so that's what Jesus was saying. And then Padma is saying, when man attunes his will with God's will, which is guided by wisdom, he's using divine will. That's a lot. Through the use of right techniques of meditation, developed anciently by India's sages, all men may achieve perfect harmony with the will of the Heavenly Father. But I think with Christian paths, it's really, their form of meditation is prayer.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't raised Christian, so I don't know.
the term, at least,
was.
Yeah. I mean, you hear a lot of meditation, at least when I grew up. You know, I was born in the 60s, and when I grew up, you didn't hear a lot about meditation. My mom, was part of the whole New Age scene, and I don't even know if they called it New Age back then, but metaphysics, etc. And she was kind of, you know, for being in Utah at the time, she was cutting edge. And you know, she helped me at least to start to become more open to new ideas. And ultimately, all we're trying to do here is to introduce some new philosophical ideas. They may not even be new for you. You might be an expert in Yogananda's teachings. We're not. But we are wanting to help people explore some of these concepts and philosophies so that you can figure out, hey, that makes sense to me, or that doesn't make sense to me, and move on and find out what does. So.
I mean, absolutely. I think what's fascinating to me is I've spent now 26 years of my life reading different spiritual texts and doing one form of meditation very consistently, aside from being a householder and householder activities get in the way. But still, like lately I've been thinking, okay, I mean, I've been taught what enlightenment is. I've been taught like, what's the purpose of life? I know like yoga means to merge into this the whole goal of yoga is to merge into the one energy. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. So Kundalini yoga, that means the one energy. Kundalini yoga says the one energy lives at the base of the spine. And so you do the Kundalini yoga poses, and that's awakening the Kundalini. So is the Kundalini the energy? Is that the one energy? So, you know, are you irritated with me?
No, I'm just listening. So, you know, this is part of the process is, you know, and Jop loves to process. So, but she asks all the questions that a lot of people don't ask. And that's how you discover is by asking. So, you know, by not asking, you're not going to explore and you're not going to discover. And the term Kundalini a lot of people may not know what Kundalini means.
Okay, so and I said Kundalini because there's different forms of yoga. And everyone, I think, in the West has heard of yoga by now, like Hatha yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Bikram's yoga, Kundalini yoga. And so in all of the forms of yoga, Laya yoga, the goal is to merge. It's union. And so I know there are intellectual texts that talk about exactly what that is. Like it's the merging of and I know I've read it before, and I know this stuff, but still I'm like, wait, what am I merging? What's merging again? Like and then I'm questioning because I don't want it to be mechanical.
Yeah. So
I think over time things feel like it's mechanical, and also over time, over 25 years, I look at the progression within myself and I'm like, if the goal is enlightenment and I'm still not dumb, but like not enlightened, okay, how many lifetimes does it take?
Your consciousness and your awareness is expanding, and that's a lot of what enlightenment is your awareness and to your surroundings and to the universe and to other people. And you know, there are different components of the human being. We have our soul, we have our ego, our personality, and what we usually interact with on a one-to-one basis is the ego and the soul, or the personality. And one of the texts I was reading, written by Anne Bailey, there's a whole series of books out there, and you know, she did some channeling through a Buddhist monk called Deval Kul, and they were talking about the more you can relate to another person on the soul level and start to bypass the personality, that's where the unconditional love comes into play that Jesus talked about. And it's really not getting so caught up in the day-to-day interactions of the personalities that we're dealing with, being more compassionate with ourselves and our own personalities. And I think that awareness is where enlightenment starts. And the more you become in tune with your day-to-day interactions with people, being more comfortable and compassionate and unconditional, that's where I feel a lot of your enlightenment comes into play. So, and just being able to ask and not being stuck in your, you know, in one rigid thought process. So.
Well, okay, so I would say with that, then they say, like, okay, if you look at Jesus and you look at Guru Nanak and you look at Buddha and you look at people who have attained enlightenment, they had I mean, we didn't know them personally, so we don't know if they had a bad day. Like, we don't know if they were like doubting themselves or resisting their meditation, but it just seems like
I think we do know that Jesus was constantly tempted, constantly, and that's in the texts. So I just because you're enlightened, I don't believe that means that you don't have any struggles or any woes or any temptations. I think that there's more of an awareness and an attunement to a higher state of consciousness, but it doesn't mean that you're not still human.
That's interesting, because I think of it as this magical, and I'm talking about this because I think it needs to become more practical. But they talk about, I just imagine someone's meditating, meditating. And then all of a sudden they have this burst through their third eye and nothing can perturb them. Like, it's just like they're unperturbable. Like, nothing can touch them. Nothing bothers them. It's like you're just like this floating being of like unperturbable awesomeness. That would be my thought of it.
That's your ideal
enlightenment.
Yeah, got it. Let's just talk a little bit about Kundalini, because we started talking about Kundalini energy, and one thing that I don't know if all yogas refer to the Kundalini energy, but Kundalini energy is essentially the life energy that's within every body. Okay, and so when you do the yoga, the intent is to raise the Kundalini from the base of the spine up into the spine, and gives you a more vibrant, energetic field. At least that's always been my understanding of why you do these different series. And one of the series that I started doing was the spinal flex series. It's very simple, and there's a lot of breath exercise that's incorporated within the spinal flex series. So there you go.
Well, the reason, okay, I thank you for that, but I was coming back to the whole, like, you're enlightened and you're like unperturbable, because in doing Kundalini yoga or in doing any of this, why are you doing it?
Because, well, all right. So because I just mentioned how much stress I personally am under at work and dealing with all sorts of life stresses, and I need a relief. I need relief to that stress. I don't always feel good, with the day-to-day stresses and frustrations of life. And so I don't naturally just want to do yoga. I do it because I know that I need some sort of relief.
So you're not doing it to obtain enlightenment?
No, I feel very comfortable with my spiritual practice and my connection with the one. Not that it can't be greater, but that's not why I do it. Morning, Priya. Our daughter's just
here. Yeah. Hey, baby girl.
She
you
just
can come
turned
say
11.
hi, Priya, if you want.
You want to come say hi?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, you stumped
Why do
me
you do
there. Well, that's why I'm asking all these questions. I mean, I think to begin with, when I was younger and I was 20, I was just in pain. It was just for relief.
Same thing.
Yeah, it was for relief. And then you get into the teachings more and you realize, that you read things like this, like that. Okay, I guess I just feel like there's a progression to the process. And so it's like, when I think about like Jesus, and I think about Guru Nanak, and I think about Padamahasana and Sri Satchidananda Mayama and Mother Mira and all these great saints, like, is it because they progressed in something to obtain that form of that level of consciousness? And is that the goal? Is, aside from pain and daily stress, do we keep up, not to obtain it from an ego point of view, but just to be our fullest selves, like to just to feel our fullest self, like so knowing that we have within us that one energy that is miraculous and
just froze up.
Yeah, it can still hear us, and it'll probably launch, but so our screen just froze. So we might stop this here, because then you can hear the words and continue at a different time. And
clearly this is a discussion that doesn't end. This is a discussion that's been asked for eons, and it'll probably continue to be asked. But there is, even the masters have not attained the end. It's not a means to an end. It's a means to keep going forward and to continuing and expanding. And
so our screen is frozen here, so I think we'll click off. But I think it's a fun conversation to have, and I just want to leave you with the thought that divine will, that greatest divine will that has like pushed stars into the cosmos and has known and unknown laws, that's within us. That's within you. And we'll continue the conversation. Thanks for joining this part of the Sunday Brunch at Dharma Diner. And tune in next Sunday because we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about next Sunday?
peace.
Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll post it when we have a better idea.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Ciao.